Hi everyone, in this video I want to show you a game between Bogdan Deac, Romanian youngest grandmaster, and Sergey Karjakin. This game was played in round 2 of Rapid Kings Tournament 11th edition held in Medias Romania in 26 November 2017. Let's see the game. Bogdan started with e4, controlling d5 and f5 squares, and also allowing light square bishop and the queen to develop. Sergey is playing the Sicilian and knight to f3. In an opening, we need to develop our knights before our bishops. This move controls d4 and e5 squares and prepares the move d4. d6. This is a good pawn move because the light square bishop can develop on the c8 h3 diagonal. Probably the other bishop will be developed on g7 or e7. Bishop to b5 check. The most played move in this position is bishop to d7, but Karjakin decided to play the second played move here, knight to d7. The third move played here is knight to c6. Knight to d7, and white replied with d4 attacking the center, and here black played knight to f6 attacking e4 pawn. This is a developing move, knight to f6. Short castle, white king is saved, and black took on d4, and white recaptured with his queen. Black should continue his development here, and he has several possibilities. He can play e5, attacking the queen, followed by bishop to e7 and short castle. He might play a6, putting a question to the bishop to take on d7, or retreat to c4 or a4. Another way for black to develop his darkest bishop is to play g6, followed by bishop to g7. In the game, Sergey decided to play e6, a modest move, followed by bishop to e7. c4, white takes control over d5 square, and black continue with bishop to e7. Knight to c3, the knight is developed towards the center and controls d5 and e4 squares. Short castle and bishop to g5. White developed his last minor piece on the most forward square in black camp and finished his opening. His king is safe and the rooks are connected. Black should continue the development of his light square bishop and the queen in order to finish the opening. Another way is to decrease the activity of white pieces by playing a6 or h6. In the game, black played knight to c5, putting more pressure on e4 pawn, but this pawn is already defended twice by white. Also, the drawback of this move is that the knight is no longer defending f6 and e5 squares. White played b4, gaining a tempo on the knight, but he could have played bishop take on f6, forcing black to recapture with the pawn. Because if white takes here and black recaptures with the bishop, white can attack now with e5, attacking the bishop and the pawn from d6, and if the bishop takes on e5, white recapture with the knight, and after d takes on f on e5, the knight from c5 drops. So white played b4, and black here counterattacked the white queen. The queen goes to e3, and the knight retreated to e6, looking at the d4 and f4 squares, and also attacking the bishop from g5. White decided to give his bishop pair and remove the defender of d5. And next, white might play knight to d5. So black recapture with his bishop and the knight jump to d5. The knight is on a very good central square. Knight to f4. Black play his knight here. He's attacking the knight from d5, and white cannot take this knight because after black recapture he can capture the first he has to move his queen somewhere, and then black can capture the rook. So black would be an exchange up. In the game, white played bishop to a4, a retreat move. Maybe white wants to reposition his bishop and place it on another diagonal, maybe on the b1 a7 diagonal. Black continue with bishop to e6. He's putting pressure on the knight, and also is looking at the c4 pawn if the knight moves. The most active move for the bishop would have been bishop to g4. Rook a to c1. White activates his rook, and he might play c5. Black, with this move, wants to weaken the pawns from the queen side. If white takes on a5, white would have an advanced isolated pawn on c4 and two double pawns on the a file. So this is not good. That's why in the game white pushed the pawn to b5, and the c4 pawn is a weak pawn. That's why in the game black played rook to c8. He's putting immediate pressure on the c4 pawn, and white should do something about this. And a good thing would be to push this pawn to, when you have a weakness, it's better to get rid of it. So that would have been a good option for white here. In the game, white decided to play g3, attacking the knight from f4, but in the same time with this move, white is creating some weaknesses around his king. The light square are weak now. Black took on d5, and white recaptured with the c pawn, and now we can see that the c file is opened. Also we can see that black has a backward pawn on d6, but this pawn cannot be attacked very easily for the moment by white. So black removed his bishop from the attack, and he placed it on h3, attacking the rook from f1. Here white decided to play the intermediate move and took the rook from c8, attacking the queen. The queen recaptured, and the other rook comes and attacks the queen again. Black queen moved to d7, and white needs to do something next. He needs to have a plan. White needs to improve the position of his pieces. For example, he can try to put his rook on c3 and his queen on c1, and then try to infiltrate on the 7th rank. The knight from f3 can go to d2, b3 attacking a5 pawn, forcing black to play b6, and then the rook can infiltrate on the 6th rank, attacking black's weakness from d6. And the last plan can be the queen to come directly to c3 and then come to c7. But in the game, white decided to play queen to b3. This move doesn't attack anything, and the quality of the queen decreased. The number of squares controlled by the queen on e3 is greater than on b3. Maybe white should have played queen to c3, trying to control the c file, or play knight to d2. Rook to c8. Black takes control over the c file, and white exchanged the rook, and black recaptured with the queen. Queen to c2. White wants to exchange queens and does not want black to control this file. Black doesn't want to do this, so he is attacking white knight, and white defends this knight with queen to d3. Bishop to d8. Black wants to improve the position of this bishop. He might put it on b6, and the bishop would be on the a7 h1 diagonal. Bishop to d1. The bishop is looking at the queen, and the knight threatens a discovery attack on the queen, and also taking the e5 pawn. So in the game, black decided to move his queen from the possible attack to d7, looking at b5. Next, black might play f5, and if white takes on f5, black would recapture with his bishop, attacking white's queen. Maybe black should have placed his queen on the c file, controlling this file, since the white queen is no longer here, in order to infiltrate on the first line. In the game, white played a4, and with this move, white is defending b5 pawn, but in the same time, a4 is a backward pawn that can be attacked in the future. In an endgame, we need to avoid pushing pawns, because they can be targets for our opponent. f5 from black. Black is attacking the e4 pawn in order to weaken the d5. Bishop to c2. White is threatening now to take f5, so black decided to push to f4, attacking g3 pawn, and white played bishop to d1. Maybe white wants to bring the bishop to e2 and then to f1, attacking the bishop from h3. h6. This move takes control over g5 square, and again, a better move for white should have been to take control over the c file with the queen. Knight to d2 from white. White knight might come to c4 or b3. Bishop to d6. The bishop is improved. Again, black should have taken the control over the c file. It is very important to do this. Bishop to f3. It seems that white wants to play bishop to g2, exchanging this bishop from h3, and bishop to c5. Black improves the position of his bishop. Bishop to g2, and black doesn't want to exchange bishop, so he plays bishop to g4. Bishop to f3. White continues to attack it, and the bishop is reinforced with h5. Knight to b3. The bishop is under attack, and the bishop goes to b6. Knight to c3. Knight to d2, and again the knight might come to c4, attacking again the bishop. And finally, black goes to the c file. Bishop takes on g4 and h takes on g4. Knight to c4, the bishop is attacked, and queen to c5, defending the bishop. And here white takes the bishop, and the queen recaptures the bishop. It seems that we have a queen endgame. White takes on f4, and black recaptures on f4. We can also see that the f2 pawn is pinned by the queen. So here white plays king to g2. The king gets out of the pin, but maybe it was better for white to take control over the c file, since black is no longer controlling it. Queen to c5. Black is the master of the c file. And queen to d2. White is attacking f4 pawn and a5 pawn. And in the game, black played g5, defending f4. We can see that in white position, a4 and e4 pawns are backwards pawns and they are weak. In an endgame, the plan in the endgame is to attack opponent with weak pawns, or push our pass pawns. Black doesn't have any pass pawns yet, but black can try to go with his queen on the c4 square, attacking both pawns. And for example, if the a pawn falls, then black would have a pass pawn on the a file. So maybe black should have played queen to c4, attacking these two pawns. White pushed e5 in order to create a pass pawn. If black takes on e5, then the d pawn can go to the queening square. Another way for white could have been taken on a5, and after this white would have a majority on the queen side. Queen to b4. Black wants to trade queens because his king can stop white's pawns. If white takes the queen, then black would have a pass pawn. So white play queen to d1. He's attacking the pawn from g4, and in the same time protecting a4 pawn. So black played f3 check, and the king went to g1. If the king goes to g4, we can see that we have mate in 1 with the queen on f4. So that's why the king went to g1. King to f7, the king comes into the center. In the endgame, we need to activate our king. e6 check, white push the e-pawn. And the king goes forward to f6. For the moment there is no danger for white pushing the e4 pawn. h3 from white. He's attacking the g4 pawn. If black takes on h3, white queen will take on f3 with check. Black is putting his queen on e4 square. His queen is centralized and it's attacking another weakness in black territory. Black now attacks the d5 pawn and a4 pawn. And we can see that white's queen is paralyzed. She has to defend the weaknesses in her camp. Also, we can see that the black queen is on the e-file and it's controlling the queening square for this e6 pawn. White gave a check on a1 and the king moved to g6. The king is safe here. Queen to d1. The queen comes again and defends the weaknesses on white's position, and we can see that now black can take on h3. So maybe it was better for the queen to come to f1 defending this pawn. So in the game black took this pawn and he has a pass pawn. White continued with king to h1. The king wants to block the pass pawn, and g4 with the intention of playing g3. Queen to g1. The queen comes into the defense, but now the a pawn and the t pawn are dropping. But before taking these pawns, we can see that the queen is attacking g4. So that's why in the game black goes forward with his king protecting the pawn from g4. And after king to h2, the queen took on d5. So white's pawn are starting to fall. Queen to b1 check. Black needs to be careful here where he goes. If the king takes on e6, white will try to check on g6, and after, let's say, king to d7, the queen can take on g4, picking up the pawns. Now the one from h3, and in this position white can get a draw. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's why in the game black played king to f7 to control the g6 square, and now white doesn't have a good square. So white played king to g3. He's attacking the g4 pawn, and the queen takes the pawn from e6, and also is defending the pawn from g4. White continues with queen to h7. White wants to give a perpetual check to black, but now black can force the queen trade, and is played queen to e5 check, and white king has to come forward. So after king to g4, black played queen to g5 check, king takes on f3, and now queen to f5, giving a check and attacking the queen. So white has to exchange queens. Queen takes on f5, king takes on f5, king to g3, trying to take the passed pawn. Black continues with king to e4, king takes on h3, and king to f3. Black is taking f2, and also the d-pawn cannot be stopped. So in the game, king to h4, and after d5, white resigned it here. So this is the game between Bogdan Deac and Sergey Karjakin. I hope that you learned something from this game. Please watch other games from my channel and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.